Hey everybody, I want to talk to you about tightness. Again, I know, I'm sorry, I keep talking about it. I don't want to have to keep talking about it, but every day I open up YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and there's another professional, charismatic, in good shape, telling everyone how important it is to not be tight. So, here we go again. There's people out there I'm seeing more and more of now that are having people run some self-tests to figure out if you're too tight. And if you are too tight, then of course there's a solution provided. So here's the thing. This is not how it works. We know this is not how it works. There is not an amount of tightness you should or should not have. I'm not telling everyone that they should go around feeling tight and restricted. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when we have what are truly arbitrary data points of tightness, and then we are making claims that people should not be that tight or should aspire to be less than that tight, this is where we have a problem. So, as example, if someone's saying something like, hey, move your arm across your body, and then they say something like, this is as far, you should be able to go this far, whatever that far is, right? It's really, I don't even know how they came up with some of these amounts. It is incredibly arbitrary, especially if you understand the history of where this stuff came from. But if they say things like, you should be able to move this far without feeling tight, and then they say, if you can't, that means your rear delts are here are too tight and you need to get them better. Antiquated, outdated model. Let me give you some more examples. Someone may say, I've seen this one recently, sit down with your back flat against the wall, put your legs in front of you, pull your toes back and reach forward. And they say, you should be able to be straight up with your leg straight, knee pulled back without any tightness in your hamstring. And if you feel tightness, then you're too tight. You need to work on that, and of course then there's their solution. There is not a certain position you should be able to get into with or without a certain sensation of tightness. I mean, you can see the problems we start running into. Like we need to define tightness, define sensation. Don't we all know that our interpretation of tightness is largely influenced by many factors: history, temperature, training status, goals, drive, motivation, lots of things. Plus, you know, it's funny, when people talk about how they want to feel tone and everything, you go touch someone that's tone, wouldn't you say they feel tight? Yeah, it feels tight. Doesn't feel soft and squishy, it feels tight. But then you get some other people touching other people saying, oh, that feels so tight, that's bad. It's like, wait a second, what is this? Just this idea alone though, right? That last example of leg straight, foot back, knee straight, you shouldn't feel tightness, and if there is, there's a problem. There's so many reasons why this idea doesn't work, but just let me say this. If you do feel some tension when you're doing that, is that bad? No. Should you aspire to be able to move further with either less tension or no tension? No, you shouldn't necessarily aspire to do that. Could you have that be a goal? Sure, you could. Are there potentially better and safer ways to go about achieving greater ranges of motion with a lower degree of tension sensation? Sure, there's definitely ways you can go about doing that. But if you feel tight, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with you. That does not correlate to poor performance or increased injury. It doesn't happen. Tight hamstrings are not going to correlate with low back pain either. Tightness and pain, they correlate very poorly, very poorly. This is why we shouldn't be going down this road. I saw something where someone said, lay on your back, grab your knee, and kind of pull your knee in towards you. And this was cited as being a test for quads and psoas. And this is one that's really messed up from a whole bunch of different perspectives. Number one, you've got some muscles of the quads that when you pull back, get longer at the knee, but get shorter at the hip. So that's kind of weird, right? And then you have the psoas muscle. By the way, I don't know if they were talking about major or minor, they never distinguished, but some of those parts of that muscle may be getting longer and shorter also. That muscle attaches to parts of your spine. Don't you think your position of your spine will influence how that muscle feels? On top of that, you cannot distinguish inside which muscle is too tight or has too much tension. We can't feel on that degree. The best we can say is this general area feels not so good. You cannot blame one muscle for pain or lack of motion. You cannot do it. The steps you'd have to take in order to say, I can't move this far because of a tight piriformis, You'd have to have imaging, probably nerve blocks, a whole bunch of things. You cannot do it. You cannot discern between individual muscles. As consumers and exercisers, I want all of you to not waste your resources, your time and your money doing things that are not going to help and they're just wastes of time. And really importantly, I don't want you to end up having some thoughts about yourself, any self-limiting perceptions where it's like you think, I'm too tight, this is a problem, something bad is going to happen, there's things I shouldn't do, now I need to spend more time doing this stuff. It's not how this whole scenario works. There's so much going on in terms of mobility, motions, restrictions, inhibitions, stimulus, control. There's so many things that are taking place at every joint at all times that for us to simplify it like this and to put it out there to tell people, hey, do this one thing, and if you can't, there's something wrong with you, and by the way, here's the muscle that's responsible. It's a sophomoric view. It's a basic flawed view. So listen, please don't waste your time, don't waste your resources. I'm not saying you shouldn't aspire to move more freely or to have less sensations of tightness. I'm saying these claims about something's wrong with you if you can't perform a certain motion, those claims should not be being made. Remember, this is about health, this isn't about sport. If you're a ballerina, you have to get into a certain position or else you can no longer be a ballerina. But we're talking about health, longevity, healthy aging, all that kind of stuff. These things just don't play out in the real world anymore, and it's old. We have to move on to the more current understanding.